my name is Seetal and welcome back to my channel. You're watching Seetal MD. In today's video, I'm going to do another jersey fabric DIY. This is making a really simple t-shirt. Now, making a t-shirt can be daunting to a lot of people because of the stretch fabric and everything. So along this video, I'm going to show you some tips and I'm going to walk you through some tips, as I already did my previous video, on how to sew with jersey really simple. Also, just a reminder that in this video, I use a pattern that I had made in my previous video from a t-shirt that I have. So if you have a t-shirt that you like, make a pattern out of it so that you always have a pattern that fits you and your body size, and then every time you want to make something else out, like a dress or a t-shirt or a jacket or whatever it is, you always have a pattern for your top. So without wasting any more time, let's get on with today's video. But before we do that, hi, my name is Seetal. I talk about minimalism, productivity, and I do some lifestyle videos as well. If you think it's something that you'd like to follow, then definitely hit the subscribe button below and also hit the bell notification button so you get notified every time I post a video. Let's get on with today's video. So we start by placing the pattern piece that I made in my previous video. You can make this pattern piece of any t-shirt that you actually like and save it and keep it for all the other patterns that you will make in the future. As for the length of the fabric or my t-shirt that I wanted to make, I just used another t-shirt as a template, left about ½ inch of a seam allowance at the bottom, and then just drew around the same pattern piece. Now, you might realize that my pattern piece says front bodice, right? I only have the front bodice of the pattern. I use the same one for my back piece by just making minor adjustments to the arm and neck every time I want to sew something. Now, you could make that adjustments on paper so you have a proper pattern piece, or you could just do the way I do it and I guess save paper or be a bit spontaneous and lazy, so all your t-shirts are different and unique. So to make the back bodice, you need to make your arm slightly smaller and your neck not as deep, so quite high up at the back. And then cut around the same piece and follow the same length and measurements for your front and back piece. Leave about ½ inch seam allowance around all around. Now in this t-shirt pattern, we're going to make sleeves. That's right, sleeves. Sleeves are not as daunting to make and they're quite easy. So to me, sleeves, you can trace out the pattern on your t-shirt, but remember, they have to look a bit like a pirate hat, for lack of a better word. So here's the pattern piece that I'm drawing. It's one pattern piece, but you must remember that the front of your sleeve is slightly different to the back part of your sleeve. Just like the armhole on the front bodice is slightly different than the back bodice. I always cut the center corner so I know where to start pinning. Now open up your sleeves, right side facing each other or wrong side facing each other, because we're going to make mirror images here. Choose which side is going to be your front, and we are going to cut a steeper slope on the front so that when we sew it to the front of the armhole, which is slightly deeper, it will sit nice and flush on your body. So the front of the neck is always steeper than the back. Now that looks like a proper pirate hat. So moving on, pin your shoulders seams together and sew a straight stitch to it. Now I did not do a hemming on this raw edge like a zigzag stitch or run it under a sturger. Instead, what I did was to reduce the bulk. I opened up my excess seam allowance and ironed it out on either side, and then sewed a straight stitch of about 3/8 of an inch from the actual seam, from the shoulder seam. That way my shoulder's excess seam would sit nice and flush on my shoulder, and it won't have like this bunched up bit there, right there, if that makes any sense. Moving on, for the collar band, cut 1 inch wide of strip of fabric and then fold it a little bit at the end, sort of to hem it, and pin it just exactly, or place it just exactly where the shoulder seam is. As you sew around your neck with a zigzag stitch, pull the collar band taut so that when you're finished sewing, the collar band sits nicely around the neck and the neck is not wide open, as it will just sit nicely, like it has like this stretch back and it sits nicely around your neck. Now do this all around with a zigzag stitch, and then once you're finished, fold it once onto itself and sew again with a zigzag stitch right on top the same seam you sewed this will give you a nice band look like the t-shirts have. If you want a wider band as opposed to, you know, just quarter of an inch sticking out of your t-shirt like mine would actually look at the end, you can cut a bigger band, like a band of 1.5 inch maybe, and then when you fold it in half, you would have at least 1 inch of a, you know, collar band sitting around. As for our arms, so this is where the arm is, so the armhole is deeper and the sleeve is slightly, you know, steep, the slope is steeper. So pin your sleeves to the arms, to the armhole, right side facing on your fabric. Mine doesn't really have a right or wrong, so I just determined myself by cutting it in a certain way, as you saw. Pin it. This will take a lot of patience because you are pinning on a curve. You know, it might be a little annoying, but trust me, it doesn't take very long. Once you finish pinning, sew a straight stitch. You do not have to use a zigzag stitch at this stage. A straight stitch would look even better and more professional. Do a straight stitch, but always start stitching from the middle of your sleeve, not the ends, because if you sew from either one end, you might push the fabric a little bit and it will run towards the end, and then you will have too much of an excess fabric on one side as opposed to the other. If you sew it this way, you might have excess fabric at the end just like I did, but it won't be a lot and you can always fix it at the end. Now that you have something that resembles almost a t-shirt, pin the side seams together, but make sure to align them really well. So the armhole needs to meet each other and the side seams need to meet each other. And then what I did is I opened up the excess seam allowance so that I will sew through the seam allowance so that it wouldn't bunch up, just as I did to the shoulder, but I didn't sew the seams down to the t-shirt. I just sewed them flat. And I did have some excess fabric on my sleeves, but what I did was I cut off the excess fabric and, you know, no biggie, and then just keep moving. There's that little excess fabric that I had. I just cut it out and, you know, you won't even notice. So usually when you're sewing stuff, you tend to have a little bit excess fabric here and there. Just cut it out to square it out. And then once I'm done sewing the side seams, I did a hemming on the bottom of my t-shirt as well as the arms to give it a nice finish. Now when you're doing the hemming of your sleeves and the t-shirt, remember not to pull the t-shirt. Remember to let the machine feed the fabric through instead of pulling the fabric, because if you pull the fabric while sewing, that's when you get like a lettuce hem or a bit of a, you know, curvy hem on the corner. And if that's what you're looking for, then great, but if it's not, then don't pull on your t-shirt when you're sewing. And that is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how the t-shirt looks. Rather boxy body and tight sleeves. I think it complements my tiny body really well. Also, I have kind of like a rectangular body, so it kind of like complements that boxy body that I have going on. I did have some unwanted puckering or lettuce hem on my left sleeve because I was pulling on the t-shirt a bit too much when I was sewing, but I remembered not to do that on my right sleeve, so that turned out well. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to give it a like, hit the subscribe button below to follow me, and I would love for you to hit the notification button so you get notified every time I post a video. With that said, I will see you again soon, guys, and have a lovely day ahead. Bye.